Man, Solgaleo is quite the interesting beast right here. So let's go and do an analysis and breakdown on just Solgaleo right now, because I could talk about Solgaleo for quite some time. And first thing to talk about that like blew everyone's mind, including mine, is what about this typing right here? Psychic Steel typing on Solgaleo, the embodiment of the sun. Where's the fire? And it's actually like bittersweet for me, because the first thing was I predicted that there was going to be a lot of psychic influence in one of my videos when it came to like Solgaleo and Lunala, and I was half right, I guess, is kind of way of thinking about it, because when I did the breakdown, it was just pretty much like freebie right here. Solgaleo is going to be fire. I mean, when we look at special attack, if I can find it somewhere in this video, either way, the special attack is fire as well, and I mean, it's also on the trailer. So let's go and explore the trailer a bit. So we see the Psychic Steel, and then we see like, alright, now we're going to have Full Metal Body. I'll talk about that in a second. But when we get into the actual attack, so Charge Up looks cool. We get a little sun emblem going on, and then like Sun Steel Strike. Okay, take away the steel, because we were imagining just Sunstrike. Like, where does the steel belong in this? Because we have a large burst of fire, and then it explodes into like even more fire and embers. How is it not a fire typing? And because we were looking at it, it's like, alright, so if it's psychic, then that means we're probably not going to get it signature move being psychic. We need to have it do something like that. So that's just one of the big question marks that we're going to explore in this video as well. And since ancient times, Solgaleo has been honored as the emissary of the sun, is referred with reverence as the beast that devours the sun. Wait a second. I don't know, I was trying to come up with some kind of reveal. So I've been seeing this pop up on Twitter and Facebook and just stuff like that. Just for clarification, Solgaleo, the beast who devours the sun, is a steel type because the lion who eats the sun is an alchemical symbol for the purification of metal. So Pokemon just blew our minds with how deep this is. Like, okay, it was actually pretty cool, because when we saw the introduction of fairy types and fairies being burned by cold steel, and the way that it really, like, all of the history and lore and ancient mythology that like Pokemon is like Game Freak is going into with the designs of these Pokemon is incredibly complex. And like Solgaleo, it all makes sense right now to a degree, because okay, we understand the lore, we understand where it comes from, and like all you have to do is read this, and I think someone read that, and it's like the 1 in 10,000 people that actually know this obscure bit of information. But that's pretty cool. Solgaleo's body holds a vast amount of energy, so it's kind of like, instead of being pure fire, you know, to contain the sun's energy, you have to have some kind of vessel that you're not just going to have this power just loosely floating around. So steel makes a little sense. It shines with light when it's active. It has a flowing mane with remarkable resemblance to the sun. Resembles the sun, not fire though. And it also has a flowing mane, so it has steel in it, but it's still a little floofy. Its signature move, Sun Steel Strike, and its attack that charges the opponent with the force of a meteor, disregarding the target's ability. Meteors contain a lot of iron, so potentially metal, steely kind of thing. Solgaleo's ability is Full Metal Body, new ability that no previous Pokemon has had, Metagross, but with the Full Metal Body ability, Pokemon stats will not be lowered by the effects of opponent's moves or ability. Speaking of Metagross, like, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm not hating on any of the legendaries. I love Lunala. Getting Moon version because Lunala is cool. And Solgaleo's growing on me as well. Solgaleo has really, like, it's a cool, beefy lion Pokemon. But the way that it's being gone about, it's like, okay, it's still Psychic. That's a very weak typing. Like, Metagross used to be in the meta, and then it fell out of the meta super hard because so many weaknesses. I don't even know if this is going to be in frame because I have it kind of centered really weird. But we look at, I mean, Ground, Ghost, Fire, and Dark as the weaknesses, and you kind of get to see that. And it does have a lot of resistances, but that's what Steel-type Pokemon will have. And you do get the immunity. But, I mean, Ground, you get an Earthquake. That's bad things. Ghost, Fire, Dark. It's not good. Also, being directly weak to Lunala, kind of a bold move. That's more on like Lunala being a ghost and stuff, like a fairy typing or some kind of other typing. But Metagross, and then like it has the Clear Body ability. Clear Body means that you can't have abilities modify your stats. You can't have any kind of moves or anything stop those stat drops, and that's what Solgaleo's ability. It won't be by moves or ability. So I mean, what we have here is if Metagross was the sun, and actually I just thought about this. I did a lot of research beforehand, but is there anything Metagross has 4 brains in total? Combined 4 brains can breeze through difficult calculations faster than a supercomputer. Metang achieving fusion. So yeah, you have like 2 Beldums make a Metang and 2 Metangs make a Metagross. So it's about like fusing and stuff like that. I was wondering if there's anything about like how it has like a core or some kind of power like that, but I didn't think so. Either way, there's some kind of like forming with Metagross and stuff like that. It's like Solgaleo is just a different design Metagross, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, but it takes away from, like, Solgaleo as a cool, unique idea. Now, it's definitely unique with all these, like, lore aspects and really diving deep into how the sun representation is, but I feel like that's why people are so off-put, because it's almost too obscure to understand. It's almost too familiar. Not that it's a bad idea, it's just not different enough. And then I was going back to my video, and then we have this video. So I did want to go through and see what we see about Solgaleo, just kind of take it all in for its awesomeness, because there is a lot of power right here. Game footage not final, but, you know, that'll happen. And I like the overall battle layout. We get to see, like, for the special moves, or maybe just all moves, it's going to go in. We have, like, a very cool layout here. Sun, power, strike, and wait a second. That Salamence just got one shot. The plot thickens. So, I've already set this one up, guys. We have Pokemon Showdown's damage calculator right here, and we can do a lot of really interesting math. So if we go back, we can actually see that one interesting quirk of the battle screen is that while it starts on our side and we're resisting the Salamence, we actually see the opposing Salamence's hit points. I'm wondering if this is actually going to be a new quirk of, like, the overall battling. I'm going to do a separate video on this, because being able to see your opponent's hit points will really help with, like, damage calculation and competitive play. But overall, 155 hit points on a level 50 Salamence. And there we go. It's gone. GG. Get wrecked. Well, that's what I did. Interestingly enough, 0 EVs, 0 IVs on a Salamence is 155 hit points. So I feel like for testing purposes, when they were, like, either setting up this trailer or getting some kind of thing, whenever they tested it, they put in blank Pokemon. So no IVs, most likely no nature, which really wouldn't affect hit points anyways, and nothing like that. So I just threw in docile, completely neutral nature, 0 IVs, 0 EVs across the board, and then I tried to, like, fit in the move. So Metagross, since it's effectively the same thing as Solgaleo, I saved myself some time right here, and I was just kind of playing around with the IVs. So what we do is we just take out all the IVs. Now, I'm expecting Solgaleo to be a physical attacker, because Sunsteel Strike looks like a very physical, directly contacting move. So because of that, we're going to be doing this, and it doesn't really matter if they're all 0 or not, as long as just attack is 0, and then Clear Body, because it's effectively the same, and Zen Headbutt. Now, Zen Headbutt has 80 base power, but on Pokemon Showdown, you can modify base powers. As you can see here, if I drop it down to Zen Headbutt's 80, it changes the amount of damage going on. So I was, like, playing around with numbers. Okay, what happens if Solgaleo has a 150 attack and Zen Headbutt / Sunsteel Strike is a Psychic? Either Steel or Psychic. Either way, it's a neutral hit. If it has a 140 base power, well, 140 base power has a higher chance to KO. So I'm wondering, like, okay, is it a guaranteed KO from what we're seeing in the video? We can't really piece that together. Is it a lower chance? Is it something else like that? And that's why I'm starting to get into a lot of really fun theory crafting right here about how Solgaleo really plays through with the amounts of damages and stuff that we're doing here. So we have 92%, potentially high KO on a 140 base power move. Now, that sounds like a lot. However, we can also go and look at other legendaries and other stuff like that, because we have Pokemon like Reshiram and Zekrom. Their signature moves have a 130 base power and get stab and do all kinds of really fun stuff. We have Kyurem. Kyurem has a 170 attack. So I'm trying to find, like, the fairness numbers, because you have to kind of reach really far when you're trying to, like, come up with stat values and stuff like that. But I think that's a fun thing we do with Solgaleo, because we have information, we have damage, we have potential moves and stuff that Solgaleo is going to do. So I'm really trying to look into it. Pull up Cerebi again, and hopefully it's fairly decently on screen. We can see just this highlighted part right here. That's going to be the amount of attack this Pokemon has. So Kyurem is going to be highest, behind Deoxys, and then Megas and stuff like that. So what about non-Mega and legendaries like this? So we can look down. Rampardos is a non-legendary, has a 165. We can get into Regigigas, has a 160, but it has slow start. And then Groudon. Groudon's a 150. Rayquaza's a 150. Zekrom's a 150. So we can see that 150 as a physical attack is kind of, I wouldn't say the limit, because that gates us too much, but it's pretty common to see on a physical attacker. I'm going that with Solgaleo. So I was like, alright, 150 attack. But then I started doing numbers. What if it is like Reshiram and Zekrom? The 130 isn't enough, so it might be 140. Or if we go up to 150, 150 would almost be a guaranteed KO in, like, every scenario. So that's when we play around with numbers. What if it is a 170? Well, then that means it could actually be a lower base power, like not 120, so I guess that's where we get away with the 130. So it becomes like the Blue Flare and Strike moves and stuff like that. I don't remember the Reshiram and Zekrom, but keeps getting deeper. What about Dialga? We have Roar of Time. So Roar of Time has a 150 base power, but it's just like Hyper Beam and Giga Impact that after you use it, you have to recharge next turn. Is this a move that will require a recharge? Because if so, our numbers become a lot easier to do. Because Sunsteel Strike has a huge amount of power, huge amount of burst, is that energy exertion where you're done after that. And we can see that it's not a fire type attack because there's no resisted hit. Its element just straight up goes down from a neutral. So it could be a 150 attack using a 150 base power move. However, if we go back to the website, we actually learn about it. So Galeo's ability is Full Metal Body, and then, oh wait, Sunsteel Strike. An attack that charges an opponent with the force of a meteor disregarding the target's ability. So I guess if the opponent has Sturdy, they're done anyways. You don't have to worry about the ability, which is pretty nice. But how many side effects are we going to be able to pile into one move? It disregards the ability, but it doesn't say anything about not by ignoring stats or something. Because looking at Bolt Strike or Blue Flare or whatever the moves are called, I don't know, there's like 4 of them. It's kind of hard to keep track of. Has a 20% chance of paralyzing, which is a very good beneficial stat on top of a 130 base power stab and 85% accuracy. So maybe we could see a slightly inaccurate move, 140 power ignores the target's ability because it doesn't say anything specifically about it being like the Hyper Beam effect. So that's why it's like, alright, what if we do 150, 140, good odds, it matches on knocking out Salamence. That could be it. Who knows? So that's what we're dealing with right now, but it keeps going even deeper because what I wanted to do is I want to have some fun. I wanted to play around with like Solgaleo's potential stats, like just base stats in total, because when you're a legendary Pokemon, pretty much just according to trend and stuff, like with the exception of Kyurem, which gets 700, and Megas, which screw it up way too much, and even like when we look at Groudon and Kyogre, they got slightly less than average. However, the base stat total that we're roughly looking at is like, if we click on total right here, we can see that's all legendaries for like the most part, and Mega Pokemon, but we're going to roughly be around 680, 680, 680, 680, just all of the legendaries that we're used to for pretty much forever, Lugia, Ho-Oh, all of them, 680. So that's going to give us an amount of points to play around with, and let me go and pull up. There we go. Okay, so I got Solgaleo pulled up, and I was thinking, like, let's start right here. Right here, we actually have Zekrom stats. So Zekrom stats seem close to what we might get out of Solgaleo, but not quite, because, I mean, Solgaleo is a Steel-type Pokemon, so we're expecting a high amount of defenses coming from here. But I do like the idea of the 150 attack, 100 hit points, something like that. We're tanky enough, but the 120 special attack honestly doesn't make sense to me, unless Solgaleo is a special attacker, and then all the stats get flipped or something. I feel 90 speed might be a little too fast. So I was just kind of adding on to like, alright, so what kind of stats are we going to maybe pull out from here? And then I was looking, okay, what happens if we go 170 attack, 150 defense? Now this is a big stretch because Kyurem has the 170 attack, but it also has a 700 base stat total, which means that power is getting stripped elsewhere. So like maybe 80 base speed, 80 base special attack, and then we can go a higher amount on defense to kind of keep up with that steel typing. Steel types usually have like a very high defense, sometimes a special defense, and then I kind of like came down after adjusting the numbers even more. So we can see that that's the number change right there. I was thinking this might be close. Maybe we could strip a couple of points out of the defense, go into special attack, maybe a little more in the special defense, like 130 defense, 120 special defense, and then something like this. It would give unusually low stats in like special attack and speed, because that's the thing about legendary Pokemon. Even though they have an overwhelming amount of base stat total and huge amounts of power, and they are restricted forbidden Pokemon, generally we see a lot of points that are wasted. Like, okay, why does Groudon have such a high attack? Why does Kyogre have such a high attack? If we pull up the region for the window again, where are they? There we go. We have Groudon and Primal and stuff. So let's go look at Primal Groudon. Yeah, it has a 150 special attack, and we see Kyogre with a 150 attack. So those stats are kind of out there, because honestly, it doesn't seem like Game Freak really cares with Pokemon like Mega Rayquaza and Xerneas out there when it comes to balancing, even Arceus. Like, balancing legendary Pokemon doesn't seem like the idea Game Freak really has. So what they would rather do is just make something that works with the lore, and I think that having these crazy stats on the Solgaleo might be the best bet. And I think that's some fun theory crafting. Now, last thing I did want to talk about is, if I can pull up the right image right here and maybe just like take my webcam out because it's kind of in the way, is if we look at this, you know, one interesting thing that people have been kind of noticing about the legendaries is that they are weak to seemingly what their element is. That we have sun. Sun equals fire, as kind of hinted at before, and just, even though it's a ball of gas and plasma like all these know-it-alls in the comment section say, sun is represented fire in many things, like even firebenders in Avatar The Last Airbender, that they gain their power from the sun and all kinds of heat things. So if we're going to be using lore on top of lore like this Solgaleo thing, it's all over the place. Either way, it's a Psychic type Pokemon, so it's not going to gain too many extra resistances, and it's a Steel type, so it's actually weak against fire. Looking into Lunala, which I'll talk about in a separate video, break down what Lunala represents, we can see that Lunala, for being a Ghost type Pokemon, is going to be weak against dark. But when you think about night, night is dark. Dark outside, darkness, weak against dark. So there might be some kind of lore cultural, some kind of inspiration as to why what you would think represents their typing, what represents their ideas, because we have the sun Pokemon. We have, actually, let's go and look at what they're officially called, because with Solgaleo, it's actually called like the sun, S-U-N-N-E Pokemon, and with Lunala, it's actually the moon, M-U-M-O-N-E. Okay, so not as fancy as I thought it was going to be. Either way, they have a weakness to what you expect their category to be based on. Their species type actually has a weakness directly to that, which could be very interesting and might actually represent something right here. I think that's all that there is to it. A little bit of information filling in when it comes to Solgaleo, its stats, its lore, its meaning, its stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the series craft. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.